This is deliveranceministry.fm VideoCast number 29. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of deliveranceministry.fm, where we give you proven insights about the demonic realm and deliverance ministry so you can wage spiritual warfare more effectively. My name is Dr. Don Ibbotson, and I'm very happy to be here with my co-host, Dr. Phyllis Tarbox. Hello,
Yay.
Phyllis.
Hi, Don.
Good to have you here. We enjoy doing these. We're well on our way. I don't know what this is, episode 29.
Wow.
And time flies, as they say, when you have fun. And we do try to have some fun as we're doing these. And we want to thank you for those of you who are sending in comments, suggestions. In fact, some of the topics that we're going to be having, even this one today, and topics coming up are things we received from some of our listeners about topics that they'd like to hear about.
So we listen.
So we do listen, and today's topic is about Freemasonry. We've heard that from people. We've had clients come in here and people with family histories of it. In fact, we're going to talk about some of the success stories we've had and people that we've dealt with in their background and over the past 18 years. And we want to just give you some insights about it, what you need to know, and maybe a resource for you, and some things that can help you with if you're in it now actively, or have a family member in it, or for many people even not in it but have it in their bloodline. And as we can see, that's certainly can affect people today. And so that's our topic. We're going to talk about Freemasonry. I encourage you to listen right to the end. We're going to tell you about how to get access to all of our free resources that we have on our website. We've got a lot of things for free there. We have paid resources, paid training things, of course, but a lot of free resources. Yeah. And we still have an opportunity for you to get a free copy of our Deliverance Ministry Plain and Simple Manual for leaving a review for us, and we'll tell you about that. And then I'm going to kind of pre-announce today, and I use the word pre-announce because I think it's the best one that applies because we're not ready to announce it, is we're going to be having what we're going to be calling like a ministry partners program or of some kind, where you can help us by consistently monthly giving expand the presence of deliverance ministry in churches and also make it available to more people. That's part of our calling, is to increase the scope of deliverance ministry. So that'll be coming at some point in the future, so stay tuned for that. Phyllis, we've seen it so often with people coming in to see us, and certainly in seminars. They talk about Freemasonry, about their involvement in their family history, and many Christians, I think, still really don't understand, or maybe choose sometimes not to believe the spiritual implications of being involved in Freemasonry. And so that's why we're doing this topic, and we hope it'll be a benefit to you. I think it's the easiest and most simplest way to start is to talk about Freemasonry, for just introduce it in a very general sense. What is it? There's lots of resources out there, books and whatnot that you can read for Christians about Freemasonry. And I'm going to kind of read here from a handout actually that we have. That says that Freemasonry is basically a worldwide organization that promotes the glorification of man by his own achievements, both within and outside Masonry, and supported by a tightly controlled brotherhood of Masons to the total exclusion of a believing faith and trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. It's a secret society. To which members are bound by powerful oaths and penalties sworn on pain of torturous death at the hands of brother Masons to protect its secrets. And it's a mixture. You'll see it's a mixture of a lot of things. You've got elements of Hinduism, Kabbalism, Rosicrucianism, and some Egyptian and Greek mythology mixed in it. They're not compatible with biblical Christianity in any way, shape, or form. Even though you'll see some of the ceremonies involved, they'll have the Bible in it and invoke the Bible in it. And it's and really, so many of the claims are false. And it really does. The Freemasonry does serve to cause spiritual blindness and darkness in God's people. And I think it's another one of those instances where God himself says in Hosea 4:6, he says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge," and ignorance is not bliss in this topic. So, there's different elements, different names, but that's, like I say, you can read more, but that's basically what it is. It's a secret brotherhood. So let's talk about why it's dangerous, why it's an open door for demonic torment.
Well, you mentioned secrecy. I mean, the oath that they take of secrecy, that was my appeal to someone that I was dealing with. You know, they know you don't know what's going on totally inside the Masonic Lodge because it's so locked down and it's secret. So on that basis alone, there's a lot of pride. There's a lot of secrecy that's involved with that. It's got a hierarchy level where you step up the degrees, up all the way up to the 32nd, and then the blessings on the 33rd. I mean, and so if you get into that place of pride, it's about pride of elevation and climbing the ranks. Nothing about that in the Bible about climbing the ranks in that regard and having your degrees be based on who you are.
And the secrecy thing, right?
The secrecy is huge.
The demonic kingdom works in darkness, and so typical of a lot of cults and different things. Anytime there's a secret aspect to it, that should be a red flag.
Right. And the God that they speak of can be based on whatever religion that you're in, like you had mentioned. So it can be Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, Muhammad, or Jesus, but your petitions and your prayers in the lodge are always addressed to the great architect of the universe. So I think that's a danger, right? And there's
it's not the God of Abraham, Isaac,
no.
and Jacob.
And then the loyalty is always to the lodge. It's not to God. So in that place, there would be a lot of idolatry.
It's idolatry for
it
sure.
Would put it in front, right? No need for salvation because there's no real sin that's not excusable, right? Jesus is not the needed Messiah for redemption of the human race. I mean, they'll tell you that. So to me, those are all huge open doors because it's not based on a platform of Christianity. Although it's in many of the churches and a lot of the Scottish Rite places, you'll find the Freemasons being led in a church, so they can tweak it and they can morph it, but it's the basic formation of the platform that it was established on. These are the basic tenets of Freemasonry.
And I think so many people get in at the low end. They don't necessarily rise up the chain or up the ladder, if you like, in these different degrees. But if you look at the 32nd level, they acknowledge that Lucifer is God. They say that in there. That Satan.
He's Lucifer, the real light.
He is the real light.
Yeah.
And so, but a lot of people don't see that because they don't get that high and get that kind of information. So that's a problem for sure.
It is a problem for sure. And then there's the initiation ceremony, which I find completely fascinating. You know, the first thing that they do is they hoodwink. They put a hoodwink, like they blindfold.
That's what a blind. That's what
yeah. They put a blindfold on there. And so one of the things that I found is that always blinds people pretty much as far as.
It's a symbol, right?
Yeah.
It really isn't a symbol of being spiritually blinded.
Right. Their clothing, when they walk in, they have them remove all their clothing because their clothing is linked to their old identity. So the person is basically stripped of their identity and given a new identity. They actually have to walk into their initiation ceremony in pajamas. So later they're given garments which identify them as Masons. So first thing they do is they remove their clothes, remove all their old valuables, their money, keys, rings, other jewelry. They have to leave... These have to do with a person's value, both personal and material. Their God is given intrinsic worth, and value as a person is lost. So the personal value now comes from how they value Freemasonry. Then there's the third thing is the slipshod, slipper, and checkerboard. The right foot of the initiate has a slipper on it, and that's designated to make their walk slippery. Their path is not clear, but it's a mixture of darkness and light, and their ability to find the path for their life and fulfill their destiny becomes uncertain. So I think that's unusual. And getting back to the hoodwink and the things that they have them wear, those are the effects that are basically put over the soul. The hoodwink is the covering of the head, covering of the intellect, the mind. It's surrendered to Freemasonry. So right there, when I pray deliverance for anyone who is in the Masonic Lodge, I always pray against the deaf and dumb spirits because you'll see it.
They've been hoodwinked.
They've been hoodwinked.
Exactly.
But even in the family bloodline, you don't necessarily have to be in the Masons, but you could be a family member of that. That spirit of deaf and dumb, however it got into your family bloodline, is going to come down the family bloodline with things like double-mindedness or mental illness or mind binding. Those are all areas that when I pray for people who have that, I see that hood in the spirit when I pray for them. I'll ask them if they've had any members in Freemasonry, and they'll usually say yes.
Well, I think this is a good point to just interject something quickly. We're talking about Freemasonry, but we talked about generational things and curses. There's other podcasts that we have. Find the one on generational curses, but this whole notion of spirits will travel down through the bloodline. So maybe you're not in Freemasonry, but your grandparents, your grandfather made these vows or were part of these initiation ceremonies, and therefore that was the open door for that spirit to enter into your bloodline.
Right. Then they put this cable thing around you, so it's called a cable tow, where the person is bound and they're actually led by somebody else. So its significance is you're actually surrendering your free will to the Masonic Lodge. That's pretty intense.
Yes.
Then there's a dagger that's put to the left breast, which is the heart area, at the seat of emotion, and it's exposed and submitted to Freemasonry. The dagger is, again, another piece of submitting. So all the elements of the soul, the mind, and the emotion are surrendered in this initiation.
Because we're supposed to be surrendering our life to Christ, right? And so there's surrendering to a different authority, and so it just makes you wonder many times how Christians can just, who know the truth on the Bible on some level, can be part of that.
Right.
You know, it's baffling.
Yeah, and so, early, like you had said early, the earlier walk, the degrees of walking in are really just to surrender your whole body, soul to them. They don't get introduced to a lot of the other teachings until they climb the ladder and get more into it. So, a lot of this has a big effect on health too, because when you're walking, you're actually worshiping a lot of the gods of Egypt that are built into the Masonic Lodge, and Egypt worship, and that's where the plagues all came in, right? As far as so in Freemasonry, you're involved in direct worship of the gods of Egypt. So in addition to all the things that you pronounce on yourself, basically, you also get what God has pronounced on you, all the diseases of Egypt. So, what we'll see is a lot of times, and I know you've seen this too, is the women are the ones that suffer with the long-suffering curses, like the long-suffering illness, the wives of the Masonic Lodge members. I'm not quite sure how that works, but I've seen it happen over and over again. The man joins, the wife comes down with some kind of long-suffering disease.
Well, it does, and I as far as we've seen that in many people, but to personalize it, that was really what was happening in my mother's life. My mother was an active member in the Order of Eastern Star, which of course is the women's arm of Freemasonry, and she ended up with Parkinson's disease I'd say probably in her 70s. And, what happened was that this spirit of Freemasonry was active in her life. I believe it was a source of the sickness that came upon her. And, for years, when we got saved, we came to Christ, we would witness to our family members, and I would try to share with my mother about God and about Jesus. And, she'd sit in church and she'd cry, she'd listen, but she was not ready she would not receive and believe and receive Jesus as her Savior. And over some period of years, we'd be sharing with her, and she would take her to church. And one time we were visiting her at her home, and while we were there, and of course we were sharing with her, two significant things happened. One was she lost the ring. She's a little 5-star ring, the pentagram ring that they have, that the Eastern Star have. She lost it while we were there. And the second thing is, one night, while we were staying there at the home, my wife had a nightmare. And in this nightmare, it woke her up. It scared her, she told me the next morning. In this nightmare, she saw a demonic spirit. And she says she knew right away it was that demonic spirit of Eastern Star. And that demonic spirit of Eastern Star spoke to her, and it said, "You leave her alone. She's mine." And now, I got to say, in the timeline here, we were not involved in deliverance ministry, didn't know that much about spiritual warfare, the demonic realm at that time, but she knew that was that demonic spirit of Eastern Star. It was speaking about my mother, and it was basically warning my wife to leave her alone because we'd been witnessing to her. And, quite truthfully, at that time, we didn't know really how to handle that, what to do. As we progressed and learned more, we learned about binding and loosing demons, and we talk about that in other podcasts as well. But over a period of time and over a period of years, the good news, and now the end of the, to know the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would used to say, my wife led her to the Lord in the back bedroom of our home about a year before she passed away. She was just ready. There was an opportunity there to lead her to the Lord, and that was years after that incident happened with the dream that I was telling you about. So the good news is my wife received Jesus before she passed away, but that devil, that Freemasonry spirit in her, was tormenting her, was hiding and keeping her in bondage to all these other things. But apart from whatever else was going on in my mother's life and open doors she might have had, I know that spirit was very, very active. Now, for me personally and for my sisters, never been involved in the Eastern Star or me in Freemasonry, but we know that spirit was active because, as I say, it manifested to my wife.
Well, I've never been involved with the Eastern Star or any type of Freemasonry either, and I had questioned my family members at length because I have a predominantly English background, and so my brothers were quick to tell me, no, we got involved a little demole, but we pulled out, but nobody in our family. So, I put off saying the prayer because we have a good prayer that you can get a hold of at our website, and we'll talk about that later. But I didn't want to say the prayer because I didn't want to have to get into that if there wasn't in the family bloodline. And so, long story short, I decided one day that I would just do it to be better safe than sorry, right? So I started to say the prayer, and the side of my face went numb, and my hand went numb as these things left. Now, that caused me to question a whole lot more because I knew there was a manifestation that was with it. Now, again, most of my family said, no, it's not in the family bloodline. But one day, you ask the Lord, and he's so faithful to reveal things. I'm in my bedroom, and I pull out the drawer. I take out my grandmother's little thing that had a beautiful charm bracelet in it, and I noticed there was a secret compartment underneath it. And so I lifted it up, and there it was, the little slipper that they give you as an initiate to the Eastern Star. This thing has been sitting by my bed forever, right? Wow. So I take it out to the trash. It's 14 karat gold, but it's like the size of the tip of your fingernail. It's very small. It's got the evil eye on it and everything. I take it out to the garage, and I go to throw it away, and I dropped it. And it bounced and it disappeared. And I said, Lord, how am I going to find that thing? And really, I felt like the Holy Spirit said to me, it's in a, look inside some air conditioning grids. So I went out there and back into the garage, tried to find this thing. I shook it out, and sure enough, it fell out. So I took it out, threw it in one of those great big industrial sized garbage pails outside of my house, thinking it was gone. And my husband came home that night and said, hey, look what I found in the trash. And he brought it right back in the house again. I knew there was some stuff that was powerful with that Masonic stuff. We finally got it out. We both agreed, and it was gone, and that was good. But, that interested me when, you see that kind of manifestation, especially on my face and on my hand. And so I thought to myself, well, how could that have come? But my mom was married to a 32nd degree Mason. My stepfather, her second husband. Now, that had no blood relationship to me, but my mother slept with him before she married him. And when my mother died, a lot of those familiar spirits came my way. So if there was any residual with that because of her involvement, plus it was in our home, I'm not really sure how that all works. But again, gone, soul ties broken, everything canceled with that. But you'll see that. I think one of the other fascinating stories that I share on this, I'd like it to have a happy ending. It really doesn't yet. Was one of the pastors came in for prayer, and he was, I won't say what portion of it, but he was the international grand poobah. They have a very long name with every one of their designations, but he was the international head of one of these sections of the Masonic Lodge, and he wanted to come in through deliverance. And so we talked and we shared and we had a few sessions, and then I recognized that he wasn't willing to give up that title. And I said to him, then I can't really pray for you for deliverance. And he said, why? And I said, because you belong to the Masonic Lodge and you're very high ranking. And he said, well, why would you say that? I'm a pastor. I brought this into my church. It's a good man's society. We all are good Christian believers. And I said, well, because it's not based on a Christian platform, and the fruit of what it's rooted and grounded in with Andrew Pike and how this was established is not a Christian establishment. And, I would not want to pray deliverance for you and have you be hurt. Like if this is a very large open door. I said, plus you already know that I don't know anything that goes on inside the Masonic Lodge. So you're kind of looking down on me right now, aren't you? And he was like, well, you don't know. And I said, so there's pride. And even with that open door of pride, if I prayed for you, it would come back in and slam you. Now, this was a man who was significantly impaired with health issues. And I won't say what they are, but they were very, very, very bad. And he was still holding on to the fact that it was still okay for him to do it. Now, in the meantime, he said to me, no one in the history of the Masonic Lodge has ever stepped down from a position like this. Because, again, he was the international head. And I said, well, I don't know what to tell you, but you're really leaving yourself wide open. Now, I will tell you, I did have a dream too, as part of it, that those that were involved with that was a whole group of people that came in to actually throw cold water on me, because that was what the dream was about, and I knew it was about the Masonic Lodge.
So you're having a dream. This was a dream you were having.
That dream I had in the meantime while counseling him, that I was being ganged up on in the spirit because they didn't want him to leave, but he actually did leave. He left the Masonic Lodge. He resigned his post. Now, he didn't come back in for deliverance, but it was such an eye-opener for me because of the strength of the dedication to this thing, even in the midst of all this infirmity and all these open doors, that he had to make a choice. And he said nobody ever left. But he heard me. He heard me about the open doors of pride and secrecy, which I think ministered to him, and he did step down. But
those
again,
are just so anti-biblical, both of them.
And he was a pastor.
Yes, and that's it. There's so many churches and pastors, yes, men of God, and certainly women of God on the women's side of things, just get really sucked into this deception. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They do. They don't see the damage, and they don't recognize, I think, the damage that it brings upon not only them, but potentially on their generations to come.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, their argument is that the Scottish Rite is not the same as, the original, but still, when you look at, Andrew Pike is the one who brought the Scottish Rite over, I believe, into the United States, and he was not a Christian man. So
Well, and that's it. And there's just, different names. You're sitting here wondering about the names. There's different elements of these secret societies,
right.
And there's different groups, and partial lists. We talked about the Order of Eastern Star. People talk about the Order of Amaranth, Oddfellows, Buffaloes, Druids, Foresters, Orange Elks, Moose, Eagles, Lodges.
Well, the Shriners. You have to be a 32nd degree Mason to be in the Shriners, I believe. So there's that connection.
Well, that's it. And that's why people have such a hard time struggling to say, well, they're such good people. Yes, they are.
Oh, they are.
Good people. They do good works, and they have the hospitals and the things for children and all that. So it's not a question of that. It's just a question of the deception that's at work. And unfortunately, the deception opens the door for this demonic torment. And that's what we're talking about here, where the fact that this involvement in these kind of things, certainly in Freemasons, opens the door for demonic torment. And I think it's worth emphasizing something that, again, that we see one of the curses, if you like, that seems to go down through the bloodlines and be heavily involved in people in Freemasonry, and they're either involved in it or in their heritage, is the sickness. There's a lot of sickness,
yeah.
A lot of physical sicknesses and diseases, and part of it, the curses that can come upon you. Even that people vow that if I leave the Freemasonry,
sure.
that this will come on my family.
Yeah.
Some of the things they speak
that out.
over, that these things will come upon a person's family, and so that's significant also.
Yeah, well, I agree, and that's what I see a lot of that in deliverance as well, like I've mentioned earlier, with the confusion and the double-mindedness and those sort of things with the hooding. It becomes something that, you almost have to look at it. These are entry levels for these spirits to operate, because, you're giving your allegiance to a counterfeit light. And so there's a lot of darkness that comes in when you pledge to a counterfeit light, because that's what a lot of the oaths are referring to, is the light and the promise of the Masonic Lodge. And so with that, then, things get muddy. And listen, like Don mentioned, listen to one of our teachings on generational things, because the enemy doesn't really care how he gets an inroad. Now, you can look at the foundation of the original pure foundation of Freemasonry and what people are building this up on, it's got a lot of open doors. And so those spirits, how they enter in through the sins of your father, will come down through the bloodline and try to gain entrance by getting you to open up something similar so that they'll be able to come upon you. So it may not have to be like you're a Freemason, but if you open up a door of pride, or you open up a door of secrecy, or you start to walk in those ways of your father, then those spirits are now going to come in and they're going to torment you. So again, you may say, well, my dad was, but I'm not, so I don't need to worry about it. Those kind of spirits have come into your family bloodline are going to have to be booted out, and the enemy will repackage it to look different for you. But if they gained an entrance with your forefathers, and let's face it, the United States was built by Freemasons, wasn't it?
Well, it is. It's a long history of that. A lot of things out there you can read about that, and even elements. People look at elements of the money and the dollar bills and whatnot.
Oh, yeah, the dollar bill.
Sure. So it's definitely intertwined with our heritage through coming over from the English and the background and all that thing there. So it's definitely intertwined in society, and it's actively involved in society today, which is why we want to talk about this, so we can say if this speaks to you, as you're actively involved in it now, or as I say, got it in your bloodline, then you should be aware of the fact there's very likely been some open door for demonic torment. So what do you do?
The good news. We got good news for that.
Well,
it doesn't have to be really complicated. I think that's the good thing about God, don't you?
Well, I do. It is. There's, for every plan and scheme of the enemy, there's a victory that's there for you. And I think it just starts with, hopefully, that recognizing if you've got it in your bloodline, because, like I say, many people say, well, I don't do that.
Well, that was me. I fought it.
Right, exactly. But is it in your bloodline? That's the potential for open door. And so it's something, obviously, we minister to, and we have people in here for counseling, or through the private sessions, and even our group seminars. We make sure that gets addressed, the whole thing of Freemasonry. And there's some good resources out there on the internet, Christian-based organizations to help this. We've come across one sometime back. I believe the name is still Jubilee Ministries International, or Jubilee. I see one here, Jubilee's Ministers Trust in New Zealand. Their focus, I think there's maybe even in Australia also. I know there's United States, if you like, branches of this. But I encourage you to look up that Jubilee Ministries. They have a prayer of release for Freemasons and their descendants that you can walk through, that you can declare. I shouldn't say walk through. You can declare it. I'd say that should be as a first step for people.
Yes.
And it's very thorough. It's very detailed in terms of renouncing and denouncing and dealing with things in your bloodline.
It'll shock you what they've spoken.
The level of detail is amazing. It's about 2 or 3 pages. That's on our website. Stay tuned to the end. We'll tell you how to get a hold of that. It's on our Academy website, in our resource library, totally free resource that you can have, that we make available to. Like I say, for many times we'll give this to our clients to pray when we're doing ministry for them in the office, because it's just so specific for Freemasonry. So that's one thing to do. And secondly, quite honestly, if you do these things and you're not getting relief or victory, then I think you need to be open to the prospect of deliverance ministry. You say, look, I need, I do these prayer and break these things, but if that in and of itself isn't enough, then consider getting deliverance ministry. I think that's many times what it is. Isn't just these devils, around you and attached to you, and they may literally be indwelling you in your soul, and that's what the realm of deliverance ministry. So I think that's something that people should consider.
Amen. Well, I agree. Well, again, the good part about this is we're right here. The resources are right here. We'll get you to that resource. If you're hearing this and you're not in our jurisdiction, we still have lots of opportunity to pray for people on Skype. So you're never alone. You're in our tribe. You're hearing the sound. So don't hold back.
Right, and look locally too. I mean, see what's around where you live too. This just get help where you can, but just recognize and know that because of this family history and Freemasonry, maybe the spiritual root of a lot of what you're dealing with, and it needs to get dealt with spiritually. So, I definitely want to encourage you to do that.
Right.
We hope that you've enjoyed this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. You can go to our website, anbcounseling.com. You'll see deliveranceministry.fm is one of the tabs there under that, under deliverance, and or on iTunes. That's where the podcasts are posted. If you were deliveranceministry.fm is the iTunes station, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe there to us. And if you do, and you leave a review on iTunes, we have a free gift for you. We'll give you a downloadable copy of our Deliverance Ministry Plain and Simple manual. It's a great value. It gives an overview of our ministry, and once again, there's instructions for that on our website on how to do that. Get that manual. I want to tell you very quickly about a resource that we have called our resource library, totally free. You just need to go to our counseling, ambcounseling.com, or really it'll take you over to the Academy, Above and Beyond Counseling Academy website as well. You can get it on either place and sign up and get access to all our articles, our podcasts, videos, some PowerPoint presentations. Just sign up, and then you'll get notified whenever we release a new article or something new. And so, in conclusion, I think that's what we wanted to cover today. I hope you'll check those out. Keep in mind also on our Academy website, we also have resources for the boot camp. You can learn how to do deliverance ministry training, ministry to children as well. Lots of things there. So please keep in touch with us. Email us. Let us know suggestions for future topics. We really want these to be relevant to you, the topics that we pick that are of the most interest to you. And that's truthfully how we got this one, because we had some interest in this. And so we put this one together, and we'll do others. So thank you for listening. God bless you.